Hey Wild West hearts, buckle up because tonight's story is a wild ride. We're diving headfirst into a tale of brutal betrayal, terrifying violence, and a glimmer of hope that shines brighter than a midday sun blazing across the dusty plains. This isn't just another story, it's a fight for survival, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, and a journey that will leave you breathless. Get ready to witness the raw power of human resilience in a tale that will stay with you long after the credits roll. Ava Grace was only 22, a young woman whose beauty should have been a blessing, but instead became a cruel curse in the hands of William Turner, her stepfather, a man consumed by alcohol and gambling debts. He was rotten to the core, a man whose life was a swirling tempest of bad choices. By midday, the consequences of William's actions caught up with him. Debt collectors, grim and unforgiving, were already circling the ramshackle shack they called home, their faces etched with the impatience of creditors whose patience had run dry. They weren't there for a friendly chat. They were there for payment. And William, desperate and devoid of any other options, had a horrific solution in mind. William dragged Ava out into the harsh sunlight, his eyes blazing with a terrifying blend of rage and humiliation. "Serve them!" he barked, his voice raw with drunken fury. The words hung in the air, heavy and sickening. Ava froze, her body rigid with terror. The command was so unbelievable, so utterly depraved, that she could barely process it. Her own stepfather was offering her up, sacrificing her to the vultures circling his failing life. "No," Ava whispered, her voice cracking with fear and defiance. "I will not." That single word, that simple refusal, ignited a powder keg of rage within William. The debt collectors, sensing a good show, snickered, their cruel amusement fueling William's already volatile temper. His pride, fragile as a butterfly's wing, shattered into 1,000 pieces. With a roar, William hurled the whiskey bottle he clutched against the wall, the shards scattering across the floor like deadly confetti. He lunged at Ava, his hand connecting with her face with brutal force. She crumpled to the wooden floor, gasping for breath. Ava tried to crawl away, to escape the inferno of his rage, but William's fury knew no bounds. He kicked her ribs, the impact sending a jolt of pain that stole her breath away. The debt collectors watched, their faces twisted in a grotesque parody of amusement. William's drunken rage escalated with each passing second, feeding on Ava's terror and his own spiraling shame. "You defy me," he growled, his voice a guttural snarl. He dragged Ava, her already torn dress revealing more skin with every violent tug, out of the shack and into the glaring sunlight. Bruises bloomed on her arms, her face a canvas of red welts. Ava cried out, begging for mercy, her voice a desperate plea lost in the cacophony of William's rage and the jeering laughter of the debt collectors. But William, consumed by his own self-destruction, was incapable of compassion. He shoved Ava toward the riverbank, the midday sun mercilessly highlighting her injuries. Her legs trembled, her body shaking with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "Please," she sobbed, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm begging you." Her pleas only fueled William's shame and anger further. Without hesitation, he lifted her by the waist and hurled her into the churning water. The icy river engulfed Ava, the cold water filling her lungs, stealing her breath. She clawed at the surface, desperate for air, her torn dress wrapping around her limbs like suffocating chains. The current pulled her under, the voices of the men fading into distant echoes. Her heart pounded, her vision blurring, the darkness closing in. Was this the end? Was she doomed to die as nothing more than a pawn in her stepfather's twisted game, a victim of his depravity? Just as despair threatened to consume her, a shadow appeared on the riverbank. The snort of a horse, the thud of boots on the ground. A man was rushing toward the water. Without a moment's hesitation, he plunged into the river and seized her arm. Ava's body was limp, but a spark of life, A flicker of defiance still burned in her eyes. The man pulled her to the shore, gently laying her on the grass. She coughed up water, her chest heaving, her body bruised and battered. The man, Henry Carter, a rancher in his late 50s, stared down at Ava in disbelief and horror. What kind of monster would inflict such cruelty on his own stepdaughter? What kind of future awaited her now, with William and his creditors still lurking nearby? Henry, without a second thought, lifted Ava into his arms, her body trembling from the cold and the trauma. He placed her on his horse and rode swiftly towards his ranch, the old wooden house appearing like a beacon of hope in the distance. He carried her inside, laying her gently on a bed near the fireplace. He wrapped her in a thick blanket, but she still shivered, burning with fever. Her lips quivered as if she wanted to speak, but no sound escaped. Henry, his heart heavy with worry, reached for one of his old, faded work shirts. "You need this more than I do," he said, handing it to her. Ava hesitated, then slipped into the oversized shirt. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a small measure of safety, a fragile shield against the storm that had ravaged her life. The crackle of the fire filled the silence, a comforting counterpoint to the turmoil within her. Henry sat beside her, waiting patiently as tears streamed down her face. Finally, Ava began to whisper her story, a harrowing account of years of abuse and violence. "He beat me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "For years, I prayed he would stop." Henry listened, his fists clenched, his heart burning with righteous anger. Ava continued, her voice laced with a mixture of pain and shame. "And today," she choked out, "he wanted me to serve his debt collectors. I said no. I fought back. That's when he beat me harder than ever, and then he threw me into the river like trash." Henry felt a surge of protective fury, the image of William's cruelty twisting his gut, but Ava's confession continued. "There were times," she said, her voice barely audible, "I thought I deserved it. Maybe I was cursed. Maybe my life had no meaning." But then a glimmer of hope pierced through the darkness of her despair. "But when you pulled me out," she whispered, looking at Henry with tear-filled eyes, "I felt like maybe God hadn't forgotten me." Henry leaned closer, his rough hand gently covering hers. "You didn't deserve any of it," he said, his voice filled with a tenderness that soothed her wounded soul. "Not one bit." Ava wept, the release of years of pent-up emotion washing over her. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she wasn't alone, that someone cared, that she was worthy of love and protection. But outside the sanctuary of Henry's ranch, the storm was far from over. William Turner wouldn't simply disappear. His vengeance was a brewing tempest, and its arrival was only a matter of time. The next morning, as the sun rose over the ranch, casting its golden glow across the fields, Ava sat by the window, wrapped in Henry's shirt, a fragile sense of peace clinging to her. But that peace was as delicate as spun glass, easily shattered. Then, the sound of hooves shattered the calm. William Turner. He rode into the yard, his swagger a testament to his misplaced arrogance. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice laced with menace. Ava froze, her face paling. Henry stepped forward, his stance unwavering. "She's not yours anymore," he said, his voice firm and resolute. William laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that reeked of whiskey. "You think you can keep her from me? She's mine. She always will be." Ava, from inside the house, found her voice. "No," she declared, her voice trembling but laced with newfound strength. "Not anymore." Henry's patience was wearing thin. "You best ride on before I lose my patience, William," he warned. William, even in his drunken rage, recognized the threat in Henry's eyes. He spat on the ground, cursed under his breath, and rode away, leaving behind a trail of unresolved conflict. "This isn't over," Henry said to Ava, his gaze serious. He'll come again, and worse, he'll bring others. Ava clutched the sleeves of Henry's shirt, her fear palpable. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Henry's eyes narrowed, then brightened. "There's one man who can help, Sheriff Hawkins." Later that day, Henry rode into town, seeking the aid of Sheriff Hawkins, a man known for his integrity and his unwavering commitment to justice. Henry recounted the entire ordeal, the abuse, the debt, the attempted drowning. And the sheriff, a seasoned man who had witnessed the worst the frontier had to offer, listened intently. He nodded grimly. "Bring her under my protection. If William Turner shows his face again, he'll answer to the law." Henry returned to the ranch, a sliver of hope flickering in his heart. But he knew deep down that men like William Turner didn't give up easily. The reckoning was yet to come. Now, Wild West hearts, before we plunge into the next chapter of Ava and Henry's perilous journey, I want you to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss a single moment of their fight for justice. This is just the beginning of a saga that will test them both in ways they could never have imagined. Night fell over the ranch, casting long shadows that stretched across the desolate landscape. Ava sat by the fire, her hands clasped around a cup of tea. Henry paced restlessly, the weight of his responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He knew William wouldn't give up. The look in the man's eyes had told him so. Then, the sound of thundering hooves shattered the silence. Dogs barked frantically. Ava's cup slipped from her trembling hands, shattering on the floor. Henry grabbed his rifle and rushed to the porch. The night was suddenly illuminated by the glow of a dozen torches, casting an eerie light on the scene. William Turner, his crooked smile a chilling testament to his cruelty, stood at the head of a mob, the debt collector at his side, and a pack of armed thugs behind them. William pointed toward the house. "Bring her out now," he snarled. Henry planted his feet firmly in the dirt. "You're not taking her," he declared, his voice steady despite the imminent danger. The debt collector, a tall, scarred man, sneered. "An old man against us all. You're finished, Carter." With a roar, William's gang charged, the night erupting into a chaotic melee of fists, boots, and gunfire. Ava screamed as two men grabbed her, dragging her from the house. She fought back fiercely, scratching, kicking, and biting, but they were stronger and struck her across the face. Henry, amidst the chaos, fought like a cornered lion, his rifle a bludgeon against a tide of violence. But the odds were stacked against him. 3 men jumped on his back, slamming him to the ground. William stood over him, his laughter echoing through the night. "You're finished, Carter," he jeered. "You should have stayed out of this." Ava cried out, begging them to leave Henry alone, but she was shoved back down. William raised his boot, ready to deliver the final, crushing blow. The debt collector held Ava's hair, his face twisted in a cruel sneer. It seemed all hope was lost. Then, in the distance, more hooves thundered, breaking the night with a welcome sound. "Sheriff Hawkins, put down your weapons." Lanterns swung as a contingent of riders, led by Sheriff Hawkins himself, surrounded the yard. The sheriff sat tall in his saddle, his revolver steady in his hand, his deputies fanning out, rifles pointed at William's gang. William's grin vanished, replaced by a look of raw fear and disbelief. The tables had turned, but would the sheriff arrive in time to prevent the final, fatal blow? The yard fell silent as Sheriff Hawkins' sharp voice cut through the tension. "Drop your weapons now." The gang hesitated. A deputy fired a warning shot into the air. That was all it took. Knives and guns clattered to the ground, the men backing away with hands raised. William's face twisted in a mask of rage and humiliation. The sheriff nodded to his deputies. "Take them in." William and his cronies were bound, mounted on their horses, and led away toward town, leaving behind only the quiet crackle of the fire and the heavy breathing of Henry and Ava. Henry, bruised and bleeding, struggled to his feet. Ava ran to him, burying her face in his chest, safe at last. Tears streamed down her face, but these were tears of relief, of release, of a future free from the shadow of William Turner's cruelty. Henry held her close. "It's over now," he whispered. "He'll never hurt you again." The sheriff tipped his hat. "You two have been through enough. Rest easy. Justice will do the rest." He rode off into the night, leaving the ranch bathed in the quiet peace of the dawn. The next morning, Ava stood on the porch, still wearing Henry's old shirt, looking out across the vast fields, her heart filled with a fragile yet powerful hope. Henry joined her, his weathered hand gently brushing hers. Their eyes met, no longer rescuer and victim, but two souls finding solace and love in the ashes of suffering. This story, Wild West Hearts, is a reminder that even in the darkest of valleys, a hand can reach down to pull us from the depths of despair. No matter how broken the past, there can still be a future filled with strength, love, and hope. So tell me, what would you do if you saw someone like Ava, broken but fighting to survive? Would you turn away? Or would you be the one to pull them from the river? If Ava and Henry's story resonated with you, give this video a like and subscribe to the Wild West Hearts channel for more heart-pounding tales of courage and resilience. Because in the Wild West, and in life itself, the battles never truly end. Share this video with your friends. Let's spread this message of hope and support. And remember to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next thrilling adventure.